My name is Rachel Hagemeyer, President and CEO of the Canton Symphony Orchestra. Welcome to our podcast, Orchestrating Change. Hello and welcome to Orchestrating Change. We're super happy to have you here with us today. I'm here with Wesley Schulz. He's a conductor, a fabulous human, owner of dogs, wonderful guy, and we're just here to chat a little bit today. So I'll let you do most of the introduction, Wes, but tell the audience who you are and how you came to be here today, I guess.
Well, really glad to be here on your podcast and Canton in general for the week. So my name is Wesley Schulz, currently based in Seattle, Washington. I've been a conductor for the last 15 years since finishing school. But this is a special place to me just because your former music director is my conducting teacher. I graduated in 2010, so that was 15 years ago. But I was one of Gerhardt's students at the University of Texas. So it's wonderful to be here and work with the orchestra that he's built up and he cherished so much.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of it's a special time.
We did an episode with Gerhardt way back during the pandemic when we first started this podcast. It was a wild journey of a podcast episode.
Sure.
It was so much. We had so much fun. I had to spend so long though listening and having to edit it to get it down to something resembling an episode because he talked for.
He has stories of fun stories.
Stories of fun stories.
By conducting lessons, with stories and music.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, so just a couple of rapid fire things so the audience can get you to know you a little bit better.
All right.
I have prepared some. I might throw some extra ones in here. Okay. Do you have a favorite composer?
No.
Okay. If you had to pick one, could you?
No.
Great. Okay. What's your
too many?
I know there's too many. Okay. Hobbies? Any hobbies?
Yeah. CrossFit, snowboarding, cycling, running, cooking, dogs.
Dogs. Great. Perfect. Favorite color?
I tend towards blue, I think.
It's a good one. It's hard to pick a favorite color. They're all so good. Okay, this one's maybe dramatic. Favorite place on earth?
Favorite place on earth? Oh gosh. Warm sandy beaches.
Ooh, nice. Okay, favorite food?
Oh gosh. Anything making a wok or on a sushi table.
Nice. Really good. We got sushi last night. Perfect. I really picked correctly. Yes, okay. Okay, if you could be any instrument, which instrument would you be and why?
Didn't people actually answer differently than what they grew up playing?
I think so.
Oh wow!
I know, it's weird.
I don't think I would. I kind of grew up in two worlds.
Okay.
Interestingly, so I grew up as a cellist. I started as a 3-year-old Suzuki kid. Then I also picked up percussion.
Okay.
And so I majored in percussion and minored in cello. And so I figure, and those two are the best. The cello is the human voice.
The cello is really
percussion is the heartbeat. And so
that's such a good way to put it.
Yeah. So I just live inside both of those.
Perfect. I love that.
Yeah.
Do you have a cause, like something that is really important to you that you like to advocate for?
Oh, just kindness and equity.
That's good. Perfect. Okay. I love that. That was fun. Thank you for doing that with me.
Sure. Sorry, I didn't give you a musical composer.
No, that's okay.
I guess a list of 1 million that I like.
Yeah. It's like top 10 hits. Best composers of all time. Yeah. It is tricky. I mean, I don't know if I could pick a favorite composer either. I think it depends. There's so many new people too that you're discovering every day.
Yeah.
And even composers from many ages ago that as an industry we're still just discovering because we just haven't played their music before. So maybe is there like a favorite piece of music that you've been able to conduct recently, like in the past year or so, that just really hit you in a way you weren't expecting?
Oh man. The most impactful pieces. Let's see. I mean, sure. That would be a list as well. But
sure.
I've only just recently done my first Beethoven 9, and so just how a piece like that can unite and activate a community.
Yeah.
Around a very well-worn piece of music, I think is cool.
Yeah.
One of the concerti that I think I've enjoyed the most in the last couple of years is Anna Klein wrote a concerto for cello called Dance.
Yeah.
And it's just such stunningly beautiful music. These long, spun out melodic lines, sort of like Rachmaninoff in that way, but just it's stunningly beautiful music, and we just need more beauty in the world. So that's a piece that really resonated with me.
Oh, that's great. We're doing Anna Klein's this midnight hour. We're doing that in November. Really excited about that.
Yeah.
So this season for us is called Where Our Stories Meet.
Okay.
And We did that. We did that for many reasons. I think that naturally kind of became the theme of the season. I know orchestras like we try to let's make a theme. We have to theme things, right, for marketing purposes. But this one really felt natural.
Yeah.
One, because we have so many amazing guests coming to join us this season, and we really wanted it to be a celebration of voices, different voices in our community and around. And so we've talked a lot about like how music tells a story, how you just said, and I'm wondering if there's like a piece of music for you, maybe that you grew up with or that you attach to particularly, like it has a special place for you. Maybe it's not the best piece of music in the world, but that feels like it is a part of your story.
That's interesting. I've actually thought it's a really great question. I don't know if I've thought about it that way, but I think it was like honest with myself, like when did I probably really start to understand that orchestras existed?
Yeah.
What an orchestra was, and I think like a lot of people in the world is through film music.
Sure.
So I think for me it was Raiders March of Indiana Jones.
Yes.
I remember having the CD. I think it was like a greatest hits of John Williams. I was in like 6th grade, and like just thinking through the piece and like, oh, what would it be like if then I was thinking like my middle school band, could we play this piece, or orchestra, and thinking through and trying to conduct along.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I love doing film music alongside classical repertoire.
Sure.
I mean, I'm always doing those concerts. One of my great privileges in life was Seattle Symphony was having John Williams come and conduct the whole program of his music. And they asked me to prepare the orchestra for him. So I did a rehearsal, and then I was there for his rehearsal and there for the concert. And did the rehearsal and was backstage, and like he has people,
Sure, yeah. You got it. You got it, people, if you're John Williams.
So like backstage with his people are there. And they came up to me and were like, if you have time, Mr. Williams would like to spend 15 minutes with you to talk about the
If I have time. Okay.
Exactly. It is sort of like, wow, okay. And so those are like 15 minutes I cherish of like he's such an incredible human. Like there's some musicians that, can be a little self-absorbed. He's not one of them.
Right.
And he's generous, he's kind, he's grandfatherly. He genuinely cared about what went on in rehearsal, telling about the orchestra, what I know about them, and anything he should know so that, as he gets in front of them. I mean, this is like, he sits on top of the world. Mm-hmm. He's the theme, he's the soundtrack of all of our lives through all of his movies across 5 decades, more, 6 decades, so it's, anyway, all circling back to like, film music, I think, wove its way in, and then I kind of expanded from there.
Yeah.
I would say film music and Indiana Jones was the start.
The comment of like, he's just genuinely cares as a nice person. I think that people who are kind, good people make better music. I think there's something in like the human spirit that you could be the crazy talented, but if you are not a nice person, I just feel like it comes through in the music. We had Garrett Olson with us last year, and the privilege of working with, or 2 years ago now, and the privilege of working with him, he is just, a phenomenal pianist. If he wanted to be mean, he could probably, and people would let him get away with it, but he was so kind, so nice, and I've like not been moved by a musician in that way in a long time, and it was really fab. There's something, I think the human spirit really shines through, and the music you make and the compositions that people do, that's fabulous. Yeah, John Williams, he also wrote a fabulous bassoon concerto. I don't know if you know.
I'm aware,
It's real. As a bassoon, I played it on my senior recital of college. It has a very special place in my heart.
Absolutely.
I love that piece. But so we've had a lot of conversations just in our times together about our industry, where we, the space we are in, and all these things that we get to do. And this idea of accessibility, this idea of attracting new audiences, and everyone approaches it differently, but I wonder what maybe we are doing wrong as an industry to be accessible, welcoming, attracting new audiences, maybe from your perspective.
Yeah, it's, I don't know if I have fully a judgment on organizations that maybe what they're doing wrong, but I think maybe just observations on, mostly I think it comes down to, when I look at organizations, are they doing something to attract people to their organization? I think we're kind of in a time where attendance and funding for any performing fine arts, whether it's ballet or museums or opera or orchestras, that there's a challenge there. And it's not just because we have a challenge in funding that therefore we should go try to open our doors wider. But I think it comes down to a deeper sense of times change, and are we changing along with it? That being said, we're also an organization that, as our bread and butter, tend to perform works that are, if not, decades old, centuries old, right? But we're also, of course, always adding to it. So I think it's in this fast-moving pace with, and I really date it back to the internet in the 90s, to then the transmission of recorded sound through physical media to digital media, and then an accelerated pace with AI entering spaces. It's sort of, attending a live performance or just going to the movies now can be more of a rare experience. And so I think we just have to be doing all the more work of, is what we're doing relevant to today? How are we going to make this meaningful to someone's life, what we present? Right.
Yeah, and speaking of today, you do a lot of commissions. You like a lot of new music, a lot of commissions, American music. I'm curious how you feel like a new commission for an orchestral organization, because we still have this perception as a society that like orchestral is not, it's, people have this weird perception that it's not for me. It's hoity-toity, it's whatever. But how can commissions and new works, how do we talk to our audiences about them in a way that actually is effective to get them in the door to like, let's listen to something. This is new, I promise. It just happened. Hot off the presses. It's not old. And also it's not going to, I think some people get scared by new music. Oh no, it's going to sound like someone just dropped a lot of pots and pans, which could be fun. Who knows? But I know you do a lot of commissions. So I'm curious, from that perspective, what do you think?
I mean, and commissioning is just, one of a huge menu of items I think that any orchestra should engage in when they're just trying to be relevant. I never do a commission thinking that it's going to result in more people coming through the door. There's also repertoire that I program that might, we're looking at parlance these days, fall within DEI, whether it's composer of color. I don't then expect that community to show up because I put it on a program. That doesn't work. And that's not the point anyway. I'm not putting it there to draw all those people in per se. I'm doing it because I think it's the right thing to do. And that we live in a multicultural society, and we've focused a lot because classical music originated in Western Europe, but that's not the only place it's played today. Other places that have taken on orchestras and have taken on their own. So like one of the things I am programming more and more is just Mexican music and as well as other Latin American composers from Central America, because they've taken it and made it their own. Sometimes they're seeing it through their cultural lens. Sometimes they're seeing it through an American lens. Sometimes they're telling their story of maybe moving back and forth between the United States and where they came from. And a lot of music is, it's good music. So much fun. I use an example, Juan Pablo Contreras, he has this mariachi talent, he's from Jalisco, which is the birthplace of mariachi. And so it's like, I'm going to write this piece of music that celebrates mariachi, but played by an orchestra. But you have to remember that in itself, mariachi music for orchestra is like an innovation, because mariachi instruments, look very different otherwise. But he wrote this really infectious, wonderful piece of music, and it just needs to be heard. So I put things like that on programming. So back to commissioning, I do one or two a year. We're a small regional orchestra, but I always try to have one or two in the pipeline for each season. And sometimes they're big things that we make a big to-do of and try to get the composer there. We really try to celebrate it, how it was composed, why it was composed, what inspired it, telling the stories behind it. Other times I do small things. On our holiday concert, for example, I asked one of our singers last year that sang on the program, his name's Tim Tavino, and he's a Filipino-American. And I just asked, hey, is there something that you would like to sing, a song that's meaningful to you, that's non-typical here in the United States? And so he asked if we could orchestrate a very popular song in the Philippines that's sung around Christmas time. So I hired Sandra Choi, who did this wonderful orchestration of that piece. And so we didn't celebrate it with all the fanfare. Look at us, we did this commission. I just thought it was kind of the right thing to do. And just as a way to include our audience in celebrating the holidays in a slightly different way, or just how different people celebrate the same holiday.
Yeah, that's really
so
cool.
It's so commissioning, and that's just like one sliver of what we do is of doing this commissioning.
Right. Yeah, that's really I like that a lot. We had one of our very first conducting fellow recently, Andrew Samal. He's from Trinidad and Tobago and orchestrated the national anthem for our kids concert because he was wanting them to get to know different areas of the world and the music, and so he it's their national anthem is traditionally played on steel drums, which is super fun. And he orchestrated it for the orchestra, and so the kids could hear it, and it's really cool. So, yeah, commissions are. It's interesting to talk about. I think I talk to so many people who just assume that new music isn't a thing in orchestras, and to meet a composer, I think is really interesting for people. I want to talk to some more composers on the podcast about what it's like being a composer. We've talked to a few.
Yeah, sure.
And it can't be easy.
It's a hard life.
It's a hard life, but it's so important. And this idea of arts and the creation of arts being important for the sake of creating art, I think is an idea that's getting lost a little bit. I feel like any time as an organization, and probably you feel it too, they're asking us, well, what's the new thing you're doing? What's the new program you're doing? We're giving you money because it's checking these boxes. And more I want to say, because we're doing this because we need to play music. Our society needs music. Humans have had music as long as we've been around. There's bone flutes older than mountains, and I wonder, how do we advocate for that in our society of just art for art? We just need to be doing art because it's important. And I wonder how it feels like we have to meet this criteria sometimes. And I wonder if you've encountered that, and if there's ways that you've kind of maybe pushed back on that in your time.
I mean, I think a thoughtful way to approach that is, just always be engaging with art as like something that you do as a part of your daily life. It's sort of, some people that might be always checking out the next Taylor Swift tour, Lady Gaga, and it may include an orchestra. But if we're, talking about the fine arts especially, I think we just have to live inside this mindset of that we are always creating art. I heard a really wonderful speech by the composer Gabrielle Lena Frank a couple summers ago, and she used this phrase to sort of point out exactly what you're talking about. And when she said, we are the future's ancestors, right? And so, if we fast forward in our minds to 2050, and the folks there, if they're looking back at the 2020s, and they want to, be like, okay, let's do a concert of all music from the 2020s. If they look and there's nothing there because we weren't creating it because we were so focused on the past, or we were so focused on box checking or commissioning the right piece that we didn't let art just organically happen, then what legacy are we leaving for the next generation? So we love to celebrate decades, right? Everyone's like, let's do it. The 80s now are super popular. Before, no one wanted to see haircuts and shoulder pads, big hair. They wanted to be past that, but then everything all becomes new again. And it's a common thing. And so we have to remember that what we're doing today is what we're leaving for the future. And it doesn't mean every commission that we do is going to be, a home run hit. But you have to commission it to find out. Right.
I think that's beautiful what she said about thinking about what are we doing now for the future, and what legacy are we leaving, and just doing it to do it. I think that's really important. And sometimes I feel as regional orchestras, we have a certain ability to be more flexible and to maybe take some bigger risks that other big orchestras can't, because they're, it's like the Titanic versus a little tugboat. We're like, yes, we got this. And so I wonder, in your role as a music director of a regional orchestra, how do you feel like your role is within the organization? So kind of pivoting away from just music and art and the legacy that leaves by itself, but instead we as organizations and our role as the holistic symphony, the organization, what do you feel like the music director's role is, or at least in your, every orchestra is different, but your role at Auburn, about how do you feel like you are working with your regional orchestra to make an impact in your community? To, obviously there's the commissions and the stuff we've talked about, but what else do you feel like is a music director's job, particularly to you, because it's different everywhere, where in that regional orchestra where we have more opportunity? Sometimes it feels like we do, at least.
It's always trying to get to know your community, the people that live there, their backgrounds. What do people do for work? What do people do for fun? Because every community is slightly different in its makeup like that. And I'm not saying I have it all right, because I most definitely don't. There's things I'm missing in Auburn, and there's still, I think, one of the biggest things that orchestras face is, and you mentioned it kind of earlier in the podcast, is the elitism, where people look at an orchestra and they think, I have to have a certain amount of knowledge and be able to walk through that door,
Sure.
feel like I belong. I have to look a certain way. Am I the demographic that would fit in or stick out if I go to this thing? And there's like a reputation for how orchestras look, and people can't see themselves in that crowd, not just on stage, but in sitting in the audience. And I can relate to this too. I won't name even that act I went and saw. I went and saw a band. I loved one of their songs, and I was like, I was going to check out the concert. And I had this kind of weird feeling sitting there where I didn't know enough about the band, but everyone else around me were clearly fans. And I had that little bit like, I feel like I don't quite belong here. Even though I like this one song, there's a vibe I get that I don't know if I like them in the way everyone else does.
Sure.
So kind of having those uncomfortable experiences, feeling like an outsider, I think is important as we try to inform making choices. So in addition to commissioning projects, we're always focusing on, how does the orchestra dress? When people are interested in buying tickets and they pull up our website, can they do it easily from their phone? If a friend has a ticket, can they go on their phone, pull up the seat map, and clearly see seats around their friend and be able to click on it, just like you would on Ticketmaster or whatnot, and pick a seat,
right.
Because those can be isolating elements. Yeah. What is our venue like? What is the parking situation? Like you're having taco trucks come forward this weekend. It's terrific. Coming up with things that add to the overall experience of hearing the orchestra. All of those things I think matter in terms of connecting with your orchestra.
Yeah. It's right. Here at the Canton Symphony, I feel like incremental improvement is the thing I say. We're incrementally changing little things to make ourselves better, because we can't expect ourselves to be perfect all the time. We can't expect everything we do to always be, a dynamite thing. But one thing that I think we have a much better grasp on now, and I think this season, it's so unique with having all of our guest conductors in, our programming and the intentionality we have for each concert feels really heightened. One, because we have you guys here for the time, and so what are we doing with this time to really make it worthwhile, not only for our guests, but for the patrons who are coming in to see? And so, having the taco truck, and doing all these things has been really exciting. And I wonder for you with Auburn, if there's been a particular concert or you've put together some fun programs, if there's a particular program or concert that you put together that you were particularly proud of, and what intentionality, or what were the things that made you so proud of that program? It doesn't necessarily mean it was the best sold, right? Sometimes the things we were proud of, only a certain amount of people show up for, and that's fine. But is there something that you were like, this really is what I hope orchestras are, and I'm really proud that this is the
product? Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's actually a number that have happened over the last couple of years, because I think an approach that I take to my general programming is I always try to think, what story are we going to tell with this program? And who can help tell that story? Or who might add to the story in a way that I didn't think about? So I mentioned the piece by Anna Klein earlier, the cello concerto. So when we performed that last season, and when I was putting that program together, it very quickly became like, oh, this is a easy program to cultivate storytelling through poetry, because her concerto dance is based on a 5-line Rumi poem. So it's like, dance when your heart is broken, dance when your soul's broken open. Like it's sort of like sort of poem. But that's what it was based upon. I was like, okay, so what would pair well with that? And I was thinking of Debussy's Sunken Cathedral. There's many orchestrations of that, which is based on the legend of this island that sinks below the water, and there's all this other stuff. But I was like, that is a legend, but it would be curious if we use that as an impetus to have some poetry written about it. So in Auburn, we have a poet laureate. And so I reached out to them and asked if they would be interested in writing original poem, inspired in some way by Debussy's music and this legend surrounding it. And so we commissioned the poem, and then they recited it at the top of the program. We played the Debussy, then we went into Anna Klein. And on the last half of the program we did Schumann's Fourth Symphony in the original version. Super fun for all the nerds out there. And there's lots of storytelling in Schumann's life, but and all the lieder that he wrote. So that's like a small way, but how that program was connected in that way.
Yeah.
Other things I've done is just built relationships with other organizations. One of the best choirs in Washington State is Seattle Pro Musica, a fantastic choir with their artistic director is Karen Thomas. We've built up a relationship where about every other year we're collaborating on works. And so our first collaboration was doing Vaughan Williams' C Symphony, which I know you all did here. And we did it in their community up in Seattle, one of the beautiful cathedrals. And we did it down in Auburn for our community. And that's ongoing. So this season it's Mozart's Requiem, but we're also doing Osvaldo Golijov's Oceana, which is something rarely performed. It's Brazilian jazz-infused meditation on the sea and the impact we may be having on it as humans. So it's just this rich storytelling, this partnering, doing concerts in multiple locations, and presenting all sorts of multifaceted repertory. To me, that's just the joy of being an artistic director, is thinking of these things and how can we bring something that's hopefully then will resonate with our community and spark imaginations.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so one more question before we kind of wrap up a little bit. As I'm curious about just conducting in general. And you're a conductor, obviously. It's kind of a two-part question. One, why did you want to get into conducting? And then two, what do you think is a challenge facing conductors right now, maybe specifically in America, that you'd like to chat about, or you have a question or something? I don't know. I just feel like that's a topic that we've talked about a lot on the podcast.
Yeah. No, I mean, the storyteller really decided I wanted to be a conductor. I was very fortunate to do a study abroad program in Vienna. And I did 5 years of undergrads. I did multiple degrees in the study abroad, and so it took a while. So I think I did study abroad at the end of my junior year, I think, or first senior year. It was a while ago, 20 years ago. But I spent that time in Vienna, and it was not a conservatory program. It was just a general program with general classes, mostly in English, but we took a German class, of course. But I took timpani lessons with the timpanist of the Vienna Symphony, and then cello lessons with the retired member of the Philharmonic. And so I was doing that study. I was attending as many concerts as I could, because you can go to the Musikverein and they have this railing at the back. And 20 years ago, for €5, you could get a standing ticket.
Nice.
So, and if you got there early, you could run to the little, there's a gate with a little armrest on it. You could tie your scarf on it, and then so you'd have a little something to lean on during the concert. And so I just was watching concert after concert, and then, the timpanist I was studying with, they were playing in the Musikverein, and I was attending the concert, and he had said, come back and say hello during intermission. And for that concert, I treated myself, and I was up in the balcony, but it's a shoebox shape, if you've ever been in this venue. And so if you're sitting on the side, kind of looking at the stage, you can't actually see the full stage, because there's how the architecture works. So I actually couldn't see my teacher.
On the wrong side to see
I couldn't see him play. And so I went down during the interval, and which I don't remember how I got backstage, because these days, no one lets you backstage to
just wander
back. But I did, and there he was. And he's where are you sitting? Up there. It's well, you can't see this, is no good. So we said for the second half of the concert, you're going to sit on stage with me.
Fine.
I just moved his mallets off the chair that was there and just said, watch here. And so I was looking over this timpani. It was all excerpts from the Ring Cycle. The conductor, I don't unfortunately remember who it was, but I was just sort of having this moment of seeing the audience's faces while listening, while looking across the orchestra playing, and then the conductor playing in this role. And to me, it wasn't a power decision. To me, it was I want to be in this room, in the room where it happened. Sorry, happening here at Canton. I just wanted to be a part of that, how it was put together, how it was conceived, picking the music, bringing in an audience and talking about it. And that's the role of a conductor in America, is that you can't just show up and conduct a concert and that's it. You've got to engage with the audience from the stage, beforehand with marketing. You've got to assist with fundraising, because that's how our orchestras are paid for these days. It's not ticket sales. We don't have state funding like many European orchestras do, whose 95% of their budget comes from the government. So if you want the music to be made, you have to participate. But I really enjoy that aspect of getting to know donors and patrons, as well as the musicians, were supporting the music. So I kind of just came back from study abroad and just leaned fully into it. I've been lucky to have a career in conducting ever since. You asked about challenges. It's a good question. The ongoing challenge is a lot of people want to conduct orchestras, and there's very few jobs. So it is kind of difficult to carve out space for yourself, to have work as a conductor. And so that's just a challenge, and I'm not quite sure what the solution to it is. But if it's something that, your heart can't see anything else, then just have to put in the hard work, get a little scratch of luck, then show up having done the work to earn your spot with an orchestra. But I'd be curious of what other ways we can support young musicians, not just conductors, to be frank. It's anyone who goes to college or conservatory and gains a degree in music, of how are we equipping them past how well they play their instrument at the end of their schooling. Because not everyone's going to get a job in an orchestra. There just literally aren't enough spots in orchestras. And I say, and I'm actually inferring full-time orchestras, because everyone wants to support themselves and or a family. And so, but most of the work is going to be freelance style, where you earn your living through a whole variety of gigs that you do. And so I think we just need to make sure that we are equipping these super talented people that are coming out of school these days with the tools to be able to build a career, so they don't get burned out and leave disgruntled, because that is, I think, quite common. Now that I'm in my early 40s, and I've seen several friends who have pivoted completely away from music, sometimes bitterly, sometimes sort of just in a resignation of like, I get how challenging it is. But I would just kind of want to put a little hug around them and see what can we do to just make this a little bit easier.
I think that's a really good question. And what you said about like sitting and watching the audience, and I think that the audience doesn't realize how impactful they are to what we're doing. And how, important it is that there is an audience. And, you can make music with no audience, and that's great. But an audience adds so much to what we're doing. And I think sometimes like reminding the musicians on stage to just turn out and look at the audience and really appreciate them. And, it's a two-way street. The audience can inform the performance. The energy from the audience can change how the musicians play. It's a two-way street. It's a relationship that I think we could do a better job of fostering and reminding our musicians on stage of like, look out into the audience, like find someone, make eye contact, smile at them, like everyone's here together. They literally spent their hard-earned dollars to come watch you play. And you said that of like sitting and watching the conductor and then seeing the audience. It's really powerful. And I wonder if there's, a class at conservatory, how to look at the audience.
I mean, that's true. I mean, if you think about it, like, obviously pop artists have this down pat. They have such loyal followings because they talk to their fans, especially at their concerts. I'm a fan of all music. I went and saw Lady Gaga's Mayhem tour. It's incredible, And so, like, the relationship and rapport she has, people respect her and her music because she engages with them. And so we do tend to have this line between the audience and the stage that's getting better at being broken down. But you have to remember that when you engage with the audience and not just be like, oh, you are privileged to be here to hear our music today. That doesn't engage or bring people in, especially outsiders. And that's who we should always be thinking about. The people who already love classical music, they're already at your concerts. So you don't need to, per se, worry about them. It's all the people that we're isolating out. Those are who we should be focusing our attention on. To make sure that we are a welcoming place for everyone and not the elite group.
Find someone in the audience, smile. I just think that's a really powerful thing. As we've been talking, is there anything else that's come to your mind of like something that you're curious about, or it's things that you've been thinking about lately in your career and what we're doing when it comes to orchestrating change or just being more accessible that has kind of come to front of mind? I know that was a really interesting thing about how do we inform, how do we talk to the audience, how do we have that relationship? Is there anything else that's kind of come to your mind?
Yeah, you get the Pulitzer Prize if you can answer my question.
Okay.
Yeah. So how do we make ourselves relevant to audiences today?
Oh, Lord. The age-old question. Well, I think so much of what you talked about here, and you mentioned not we were recording, maybe we'll get in a blooper later in our future, but about the Dudamel performance of Fidelio with deaf actors. And this idea of doing things just differently and just including people because they're talented and have a lot to offer, and not feeling like we're creating accessible spaces or like diversity because we have to check a box, like we said earlier, of finding really talented people. And if you have really good art, people are going to want to come and see it. And not just going to the same well over and over and over again. Beethoven's great. We've played Beethoven. I played Beethoven before. But what can, but then it's like, how do we tell people about it? And how do we convince them that it's worth it to spend, $50 on something? And they're like, well, I'd rather buy groceries this week, honestly. I don't know. Is there something that you've seen particularly work well?
I mean, I have lots of thoughts, and I don't necessarily have right answers. But I mean, yes, to all those musings that you have, those are all threads that we need to pull on. While you're talking, it also made me think. We were talking about the LA Philharmonic as an orchestra that's very innovative at the forefront of doing cool stuff, just to boil it down. And they've long had a series at the Hollywood Bowl. There's also the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra, this marvelous outdoor venue in LA, and it works because it's warm there, and they can do
good
concerts. They have good weather. But even here in Ohio, we have great weather in spring to early fall easily. And if we just really think big, what can we do? People love to go to outdoor things. That's what I said. And they always do this Star Wars concert. And usually John Williams conducts, and there's this whole thing where everyone brings their lightsabers, and everyone is waving lightsabers. But they do like 3 or 4 performances of this, and it's become an iconic thing. That's one thing that an orchestra should do, is that kind of stuff. Or it's partnering up. I did concerts this past summer with Seattle Symphony and Utah Symphony with Lindsey Sterling. And I admit, I didn't know who she was a couple of years ago, but then I go on her Instagram and she has millions of followers. So there are clearly people who are fascinated by this artist who has fused playing the violin with dance, and gymnastics, and all sorts of stuff like that. And that resonates with people. So that's a thread. Why not? And we can also do Beethoven. And Beethoven with deaf actors in opera, super cool. And sometimes we can present Beethoven 9 on an indoor concert stage. That's fine too.
It's not an either or.
It's
not yes and. There's so much we can't be doing.
But as long as yes, exactly. But we should just always be thinking about what creative thing can we do? Because why not? And work in the arts. The whole point is to be creative.
Art for the sake of art. Just do it. It's so much fun. Okay, as we're wrapping up here, I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for the audience. If there's anything that you're like, this is something cool, you guys should check it out too. A book, a movie, a song, whatever.
Sure, I'll give you 3.
Great.
A book to read, The Art of Relevance by Nina Simon. It's the guiding light for me that I've read and reread. And every time I'm just like, wow, I still don't get it. Like what she's saying in that book. Meaning I do, but the work is hard. It's really hard. But doing the kind of work she suggests because it's not just about opening up your arms. This is kind of her words in her TED Talk. It's not about opening up your arms wider, hoping people will give you a hug. It's about building relationships with people, with communities, to try to learn about what is meaningful to them and how what you have to offer might be folded in with what is valuable to them, and then creating this thing together for meaning and relevance in the community. Then less on the heady side, 2 great pieces of music. I would go with another favorite concerto of mine from the last several years is the wonderful group Time for 3. They had a concerto written for them by Kevin Putz called Contact. It's on Spotify. You can stream it there or wherever you have your streaming services. But I think it's one of the coolest concertos ever written in the last 10 years. So it's 2 violins, double bass with orchestra, and it is incredible. The other piece of music, Viet Quang. He just wrote a music called John and Jim, celebrating 10 years celebration since marriage equity was given to everyone. And he wrote a piece honoring the couple who was at the center of that legal debate. And it's just a joyous, happy, fulfilling piece of celebration and love. So check that out. It's for wind ensemble currently, but there's orchestra transcriptions that just finished. So
that's awesome.
That'll be on the docket for me.
Well, those are great. Those are all wonderful. So thank you so much. All right. Well, just as we end here today, we ask every guest, last question is very open-ended. And so do with it what you will. It's just, how do we orchestrate change?
be kind, build relationships with people.
All right. Wes, thank you so much for joining me today. We're so happy to have you. And everyone, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, listening.
Orchestrating Change is a production of the Canton Symphony Orchestra. Our theme music was composed by Eric Gould and performed by Derek Snyder and Tim Adams. Our video and audio editor is Sarah Daler. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.